We are in the last week of the Tour de France, everybody. We've got 2 rest days down, 2 COVID-19 official tests done, 16 stages, and now the Alps. Coming up on today's show, stage 16, some reactions and results. COVID-19, like I said, testing round 2, no positives in the books. So maybe riding outside in a group is not as bad as you think. We'll talk about that a little bit. Bernal goes pop, and it's okay to make excuses, Egon. We're okay with that. The Giro Rosa, it's in full swing. Do you have time to watch it? Some things that make you go, the ride of the day. And Sagan takes on the motto, what would Lance do? He's hawking his wares. It's Tuesday, September 15, 2020, and this is the Between Two Wheels podcast, episode 198. I'm Tyler Janke. Thank you for joining today. Stage 16, a barn burner? Maybe not so much. Was it a Bora day? Horrible dad jokes. Do we have some, yay, we'll have some clapping along with that one, or maybe not. Look, stage 16, La Tour de Pin to Villard-de-Lans. You just kind of say it you don't enunciate anything, and that's how I think you speak French. 164 kilometers. It's a mountain day. Cat 4, Cat 2, Cat 2, Cat 1, and Cat 3. The last Cat 3 summit's kind of off the 1. And so we'll get there. I thought I'd do a little bit of what Jonathan Scriven had said about the stage 16. And here's what we have.
We have a rest day, then second rest day, and then we have stage 16.
Yeah, so now we get to sort of those traditional Alps stages that people know. So we start in La Tour de Pin, we finish in Villard-de-Lans, and this is sort of the it's the Grenoble area. This is the area, if you have viewers who are old enough to remember the '68 Olympics, this is where many of the ski activities were held. On the last climb, I think I have here, it's the Montée de Saint-Nizier de Moucherotte. This is where, I did look that up, this is where the ski jumping was done in '68. So this is very typical French alpine. Okay, what that typically means is, again, quite a bit cooler, quite a bit higher, although not as high as coming up in a couple stages, but sort of a very typical alpine stage where you have steep ups and, more than that, super steep downs. And those can be very tricky. And again, we're talking about September. So you get a little bit of moisture and cool temperatures. Those can be treacherous.
So it wasn't treacherous today because it had good weather, but that's kind of a description of what we had in store for today's stage. And I thought I'd just also talk a little bit here about kind of the history of Villard-de-Lans, which is an interesting thing. And we'll kind of recap back from 1987, the Tour de France in '87. You had Jean-Francois Bernard. He had the French hope. He was called the next Bernardino. He wins atop Mont Ventoux, the individual time trial of Mont Ventoux. Pretty excruciating. He wins, takes the yellow jersey. The next day they come with the Villard-de-Lans here, and you have Pedro Delgado and Stephen Roche really close to the GC. They attack in a feed zone, and they distance Jean-Francois Bernard because he was getting a feed. And then just as he's catching back up, Frenchman, he has a flat and he has all kinds of trouble. Well, they end up attacking off here. As you can see, Stephen Roche actually wore what they don't have anymore. It's called the combination jersey. It's a combo of all the groups, and it was one, they don't have that anymore, but kind of a catch-all jersey for the usually kind of the person on second GC would end up having that. Greg LeMond wore it. Anyway, they come into Val-d'Oron here, and Pedro Delgado ends up with the stage win, while Stephen Roche ends up second place, but ended up getting the overall on the GC and taking the yellow jersey. And then he ended up winning the 87 Tour. What's kind of interesting about that's where they're finishing today. And we had Nicolas Roche in the mix today, up in a break. I just thought that was some interesting take on the stage there. The breakaway today got a huge lead, about 23 riders or so. There's 3 Sunwebs in there, 2 Bora, 3 Ineos riders. So they're obviously throwing in the towel on the Bernal situation. We'll talk a little bit more about that as well. Sivakov, Carapaz, and Amador in there. EF had Paulus, or they had Bettiol, and then Paulus ends up bridging up there. Julian Alaphilippe's up there. Pierre Roland is up there. Leonard Kamna for Bora. They had Daniel Oss was just pulling on the front for Rich Reichenbach. Pierre Roland ends up taking some KOM points on the 3s coming in there. He's virtually on time. He is tied with Cosnefoy, who needs to get out of that jersey. We need a guy that can actually go uphill. But Pierre Roland does not end up taking it because he ends up tied with him on the day. He doesn't get up the front for the Cat 1 and the Cat 3 finishing to get any points. Therefore, he's tied on points, and it's a count back. So Cosnefroy will be wearing that again tomorrow. And hopefully he'll get expelled from the jersey soon. And I don't say hopeful because I like that jersey, and I'd like to see an actual climber in it. And he gets dispatched about as soon as Sam Bennett does. Speaking of sprint points, you had Matteo Trentin getting in the break today. He ends up, I think, a few points at the finish. He ends up getting a sprint at the intermediate, kind of nullifies the other two, and he's creeping up. He's been an annoying factor for Sagan here in these intermediate sprints. Being able to take, and like I mentioned before, I think it was a 2016 or 17 Vuelta. He took 3 stages, and some of those were over some climbs. So he's able to get up and over as he need to be in the break. You had Pierre Roland, like I said, taking some points. But on the Cat 1, you had Kamna, Carapaz, Reichenbach, Julian Alaphilippe. The Pacher was up the road, which was Pierre Roland's teammate. He took off on the early slopes. He thought maybe they were doing some team tactic stuff, but you never saw Roland again. So Kamna, Carapaz, Reichenbach, Julian Alaphilippe all haul him in. Then Carapaz kind of takes off. Julian Alaphilippe chases it in, and as soon as he catches Carapaz, he just explodes. Not good. He looked like maybe it was the way he comes off of the group. Oftentimes, it's almost as if something happens to his bike, and he's just kind of like a leg shrapnel everywhere. Behind, they had like 10, 15 minutes on the group, and as the leaders were hitting the bottom of the Cat 1 slope, Wout, of course, and the whole Jumbo team's there, and Guillaume Martin on the Cat 1 takes off, and you're like, oh, interesting. He had a teammate with him, but that was soon reeled back in, and then he's chilling. Bernal gets popped off of the back, stretching his legs, doing some other things. Didn't even look like he was going to really try. So some speculation is he doing this so that he can just have a shot at tomorrow, have enough time on the leaders where they're not going to be chasing him down? Perhaps that's the case. What I actually expect is that he's just not doing well. He either overtrained or he is just dead. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. So the peloton. Well, actually, as it is, 20K out, Kamna, and it's just Kamna then and Carapaz. They come over the Cat 1 climb, and Carapaz has been leading it. Kamna comes to the front, and he puts on a little turn of speed, and you're like, okay, well, I don't know if he's going for the points. But he ends up distancing himself to Carapaz going over the top, and then just really distanced himself going down the hill, starting up in the final. He solos across the valley. He starts going up across on the Cat 3, the last 2-3K there, and he has like a minute and a half. Easily solos in. He's like, what, 24 or so? You never saw EF. Nilsson was in that group. Nilsson, Palace, and Bedial. They didn't do much. Nilsson ended up drifting all the way back and getting caught by the lead peloton coming into the finish. So he'd had a day, maybe worked too hard. I mean, look, it's a third week of a grand tour, the Tour de France, no less, his first Tour de France, and he's been very, very active. So good to see him not crawling at the back, but doing what he can to be up there. As it was, like I said, Matteo Trentin got a little bit of time. Kamna ends up soloing in. The peloton, the last 2 kilometers, they tried to make it a little bit exciting. Wout van Aert gets on the front. Oh, a little earlier than that, you saw a little cross of wheels with Sepkus and his leader, Roglic. And Roglic kind of just clipped his wheel. They're going up the climb, so it wasn't too bad. And he was able to take his foot out, gets right back in. So Sepp doing his best to take riders out, including his own teammate. Remember last year in the Vuelta, Jumbo Visma, you had the team time trial, and there was some wet water on the front. Wet water. There was water on the time trial, on the team time trial, and there was some blame going around that maybe Nilsson Palace caused a big Jumbo Visma wreck and caused Roglic to go down. Remember that? That's a really good point, Tyler. Thank you. But remember that 2 teams lost a bunch of time that day. Jumbo Visma and UAE. Okay. Those 2, I think, ended up number 1. Well, obviously first in the Vuelta, and number 2, which was Roglic, Pogacar. So, people talk about him being either one of these guys fading. They came from a behind and had to make up like a minute and a half, 2 minutes. So solid work on them. And obviously we saw what happened to them in the Vuelta last year. Anyway, coming in last 2 kilometers, Wout's on the front. Sepp kind of takes over. He's milling around there. He never really has to. 1.5 kilometers out, Pogacar kind of takes off and dispatches kind of the lead Ineos team. makes his move. Roglic easily follows. All the GC riders, you got the same ones with about 20, 15 in there. Nairo gets a distance, typical 15 to 20 riders. Wout then comes back to the front at 1.5 Ks, up to about 400 meters left. Then Pogacar takes another dig, and then Lopez at 300 takes a huge dig, actually gets a gap on everybody. Look, he's coming into this at fourth at 1:45, so he's 11 seconds off of Ran in third place. And in the end, he has a gap, and looking like he might get a little time gap. But in the end, Pogacar, Roglic, Port, Ran, all of them come in with the same time. So no finishes, no changes for the lead groups coming into the stage 16 of the Tour today. Not too bad. Not too bad for what we had for excitement. Was it? I don't know. It was okay. It wasn't the most exciting day that we've ever had, obviously, but maybe we'll go to the results here and just break down who and where everyone is and see if we can actually just kind of if there's any big changes we need to talk about, and then what we obviously have coming up for the next day. So Village Dulon, we have Leonard Kamna comes in first place, Carapaz second at 127, Reichenbach 156, Sivakov. So you had Ineos at least getting up there with two in the top five. Ineos at 230, Sivakov, Geschke, Warren Barguil, Tish Benut, Nicholas Roach coming in eighth place. It would have been cool to see him getting a win, and the same, like I mentioned, the same place his father took the yellow jersey in 87. By the way, side note on the yellow jersey in 87, Stephen Roach, he won the Giro that year, he won the Tour de France that year, and he won the World Championships that year. Think about that. It's pretty solid. As far as the big guys go, Roland gets, Matteo Trentin gets 14th. So I think he got some sprint points, because I think that goes down to 15th. And then here's the ones: Lopez, Pogacar, Roglic, Port, Landa, Moss, Yates, Iran, Valverde, Guillaume Martin, all coming in from 20th to 28th. No time lost. Tom Dumoulin loses just a few seconds off of that group. They're 16 and a half minutes off of the stage winner. So they obviously just kind of mailed that in. Dan Martinez, Wout, Sepp, all the same. Nairo, like I said, he lost some time. Marc Soler, Enric Mas should have been up here. Yeah, he's up there in the mix. So, and let's see if we can do Nilson Powell. See if we can go all the way down and see how much time, if we're able to Bernal. Hey, TJ Van Garden, 117th place. We don't really hear much about him. As far as GC goes, no changes in the top there. Top 10, all the same. Nairo loses a little bit. Actually, Tom Dumoulin and Nairo switch places from 9th and 10th. So we expect probably more of that in the future. The green jersey tightened up a little bit, 269 to 224 for Bennett and Sagan. No change there, but Matteo Trentin moves up 212. I think he had been around 100 something. So he moved in, took it into the 200s. He's closed down to, just 12 points to Sagan, and still got an open there. And Caleb Ewing, I don't think he's really trying that out. Youth, well, there's really not much to do. There you go. Egan Bernal, 18 minutes behind Pogacar. So he lost good 18 minutes out of that group today. He's mailed that in. And yeah, he's still third place for the young rider jersey. As we mentioned, Pierre Roland moves 4 places up to second place today. Pogacar down, a bunch of these guys down a spot. Leonard Kamna moves up to 7th place, 27 seconds. He might be a challenge here. And Cosnefroy, 36 points. Team GC, Movistar over Ineos, 35 minutes. They're probably going to just be able to sail that one in, because I don't think EF with Higuita out is really going to be able to do much. And Martinez, I don't know, maybe he's just waiting in the wings to see what he can do. Martinez, that is. Okay, so that's what we have for the stage 16, and we'll talk a little bit coming up about stage 17 and give you some facts on that. How about the COVID-19 testing part 2, I guess we should actually call it. At this point, the conception maybe of riding outside. Look, they're saying we don't know. We're still learning all about the transmission of the COVID-19, but there's been no positive tests for riders during the race. CCC just had to pull one of the riders out of Trento. Okay, that's good. Well, not good, but I mean, they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. But for all the little hot spots coming around in France, it doesn't appear that the Tour has really been too much affected. Like I said before, there were 3 teams that had a staff member. Ineos has since been retested and declared false positive. I heard that report. I'm not seeing it in anywhere of the listings. They keep talking about the 4 teams. So I heard that from Johan Bernal was who reported that. So he might have a little bit better direct news source over there than some of this. But you think the writing of the news would be a little bit to correct that. Christian Prudhomme, he's back at the Tour de France. He was quarantined for 7 days and now back, still bubbled outside the riders and staff, however. Look, the Tour, this was interesting. So maybe our concept of group riding isn't, as far as the COVID goes, it's not quite what you would think. Now, I think there would have to be one rider in that group that's infected to then try to spread it. And of course, none of those guys are getting it. Although you're getting a rider, testing positive, but he's not like spreading it like Trainer Adriatico. He's not spreading it throughout the group there. You're not getting it from, people on the side of the road. There was that report early on from Belgium talking, about wind flow and particles coming into you. And that was immediately though, debunked in many senses. Not that it's the flow isn't correct, but that was all kind of done in a vacuum. Think of it, if you're into physics or engineering, that it's kind of like Newtonian physics versus Einstein, where one thing's in a vacuum and one thing's getting real world experience and all the aspects and parameters that go into that. There's wind, there's all kinds of things that downdraft that occur as crosswinds. And then is this moisture, it's not just that it hits you, is that then making you positive. I think that you have to have prolonged existence and interaction with a person to be getting this. At least this is my take. And look, I'm hopeful on this, right? I'm always kind of looking on the positive side about it. And I know there's a lot of people out there that really are kind of invested in the dour symptoms of this, or the dourness, and they kind of, I don't know, are they you have Sean Bagley and a few of these other guys that we know going to Georgia, and there's a lot of hate about them doing this race. I don't know. I'd like to see us kind of get over some of this, and if there's a reality to it, and we're not having a spread with group riding, maybe we get back to doing some racing. Look, the Tour de France is just one big giant laboratory at this point, and so it's kind of exciting to see how that's going, and perhaps we're going to be able to see a little more normalized racing. The bubble, I still think that's exactly what you're going to do. You want to keep these guys distance from. It's for their own benefit, in a sense, to be able to keep doing the racing. So don't have them interact with everybody. We're seeing some crowds on the side of the road, but they've also then, I think, stage 15, they really reduced being able to get up on the final climb. So all those things are happening. Or which I kind of got the sense from Chris this morning, texting him about it. Maybe the testing isn't done. He's like, what is this? Is it just an oral exam? Yeah. Hey, you doing okay? Yeah. It's kind of like the concussion protocol that they used with Roman Bardet the other day. Hey, you want to ride? Yeah. Okay. Then you get back on your bike. Perhaps that's the case. I still don't know if the testing is done by the UCI, WADA, the French government. Who's doing that? So would these organizations have, incentive to lie? Yeah. Would the French government ever lie to you and have incentive to lie? I think so. But as of right now, it looks like we're still going ahead. Bernal got popped the other day, and then again today, and he didn't look so good. So, and he's also like, "Hey, look, I'm not making any excuses." My feeling is it's okay for you to make excuses. We don't expect this kind of riding from you. Won the Tour last year. You're young, but I think you came into the race fit. Didn't seem like you. I mean, you were holding on for you were second, third, fourth, whatever, top 5 there for quite some time. I don't think that's such a problem to make excuses, and I understand. But what are you going to say? I mean, if you think you're perfectly fit, and this is just something you just TJ'd yourself out of the front group, no. I think you're just actually there's a back problem. There's which is indicated he's had, and when you have that, there's a twinge in your back, and it runs down all the way down your legs and your lower back. It can be debilitating. It can really do wonders against your ability to ride strong. So. Maybe that's the case. Maybe he overtrained. I think you're getting some of that. We don't necessarily need to put that kind of workload on a super young rider. Maybe it's catching up to him. And maybe it's tough to be focused of winning the Tour and then coming back the next year and, all the accolades, all the time investments, but it seemed like he was doing enough riding. So I don't think that's necessarily the case, especially with COVID. It should have been easier for him to turn down interviews and all kinds of stuff. He's a big star there in Colombia. But I think it's look, he's young, seemingly humble. Bernal, it's okay to give excuses. The Giro Rosa. It's the women's tour of Italy. You know, I want to go back real quick to the COVID, because the Giro announced today that they're not going to do this 2 strikes and you're out. You know, I guess COVID isn't spreading quite the same in Italy as it has been the hotspots in France right now. So he's like, look, we don't want to have someone, be test positive and treat them like some sort of criminal. We want to protect the riders. We want to protect the health, but we're not going to do that. If one rider's positive, we're going to remove them or get them, health, make sure that that's an indicator properly done. But we're not going to do the 2 strikes, and I don't think the Italian government is coming down on them. So it was it's some hope there. Anyway, back to the Giro Rosa, which is the women's tour of Italy, a 9-day stage race going on. I think there are 5 or so stages in. The biggest stage race on the women's calendar. And it just happens to coincide with the biggest stage race on the men's calendar. Scheduling, anyone? Is this this happens every year, and I come on here and I complain about it a little bit about it because I think they have amazing racing for the women. Now, they did some gravel road the other day where the Van Vleuten and some of these other women, they were getting off their bikes. I think the woman that won the stage, I think it was Annemiek, she won the stage and she also had to push her bike on the gravel. Now, it's a little extreme, but there's some exciting racing going on over there. And we're probably, I don't even know if it's being broadcast. If you look on steephill.tv, I think you can rebroadcast some of that is going along. So you might be able to see some of that. It might be geo restricted for your location, but at least check that out. I'm definitely going to, and I do this every year. I go back and review the tour, the Giro Rosa after the tour, because I just don't have time to be following it in that extent. And it's some of the best racing you have. Once again, why are you packing the best women's race? And I know it's a COVID year, and so you can say, oh, it's COVID, and we're trying to shove all these things in. It happens every year during the Tour de France. You get the best women's race at the same time, and it's a shame. So I usually enjoy it and we'll rewatch it at a later date. So maybe scheduling can help. Talk about women, and you're like, oh, we'd like to have more, the tour, and we'd like to have the women racing this and this. Okay. Best race of the year, and let's cloud it with the men's race. If you do want to hear some coverage though, so this is one aspect that you can do. And Cycling Tips on their podcast is at least doing it right. They're you're tuning in to their podcast every day to hear about the Tour de France, and then they're throwing in snippets about the Giro Rosa. So kudos to them. I just don't have the time, energy, or ability to multitask to that extent. Otherwise I may do it. How about some things that make you go, Well, I mentioned early on, I said, what would Sagan has taken on the motto, what would Lance do? Okay. What would Lance do? Well, he would sell product. If you've ever watched or listened to his move, it is about a 30-minute show, of which maybe 15, 20 of that is actual bike race conversation. You tune in immediately. They have a little snip of kind of 30 seconds of what the show is going to be, so a quip in the break-in. And then they have, you can just skip to anywhere between 5.5 to 7 minutes in, and you're done with him hawking his products, and you can go on. Well, Peter Sagan, he is, let me just say, he's fallen in the footsteps and the heels by hawking his a Euro commemorative gold medal to celebrate his 3 world champion victories. He's selling 100 of them, engraved with his face, and each costing almost 18,000 euros. Engraved with his face. How cute. Gold medals are all numbered and come in with a certificate to celebrate each world victory in Sagan's palmares after he won 3 consecutive rainbow jerseys, 2015 to 2017. In an Instagram post, Sagan said, "Dear all," love his writing, "I would like to do I do it in his accent? To present my limited commemorative issue of golden medals in a number of 100 pieces, created to celebrate the 3 master titles, Richmond, Doha, and Bergen. Sagan recently had a child and got divorced." This is now not him. This is me. He recently got a child and got divorced, and maybe he's looking for a way to make money. Just some family law advice coming at you here real quick. Typically, money that is for support obligations is anyway derived. Okay, so you still have to report this. You still have to use it in the calculation for child support and spousal support. So just saying, even though you're getting money here, it's not a way to, you're still obligated to report income, and you're still subjected to your child and spousal support as a result. So in case this is a way that you're trying to get around that, I'm just throwing that out there. that's all we're doing here. Okay, coming up, stage 17, Grenoble Mirabel to Col de Los, 170 kilometers. This is the one I should post. We'll probably play some of this tomorrow. Mike, Mike, I'm sorry, I've just been really busy. It's been hard to get all this production out. It's got a HC and HC ending up the Col de Los, which is going to be a long ass climb. Stage 18 is La Roche to Sur Ferron, 175 kilometers. It's got a 1, a 3, a 2, a 1, and 1, and then a hump and a downhill finish. Stage 19, rolling, Cat 3 and a sprint. And then stage 20, individual time trial from 300 meters height to 1,200 meters up the Planche de Belfi at stage 21. Let's hear what Jonathan Scriven has to say about stage 17 coming up.
What we have there at stage 17.
17, as you can see from the profile, is basically the Col de Madeleine. That's the famous col. Yeah. So we come out of Grenoble here, and again, we're getting into sort of area that's known for Olympics. This time it's Albertville. Okay, so we're heading.
Was that 92? What was that?
92, okay. Correct. Albertville. So Grenoble and Albertville are only about 45 minutes apart. And then once you get sort of out of Grenoble, you'll get on your way to Albertville, and then you turn south. And the region here, and I have it here, as I said, it's the Col de Madeleine and it's the Méribel. And for those of your listeners or watchers who are into skiing, the big ski resort here is called Courchevel, which is quite it's like one of the biggest ski resorts in Europe. And these are all the little mountains here. So I'll move on to the next stage, because the next stage is brutal.
Brutal is what he said. So we'll talk about that coming up tomorrow after we recap stage 17. And any predictions? Col de Los? I mean, I think you got Pogacar. You've got, Lopez looked pretty spry today on the finish. So Lopez and Uran is not quite as punchy as Lopez, but he'd been able to grind it out in that last climb. They started around 142K and they finish at 171. So 30K and it's even before that, it kind of starts pitching uphill. And the real big stuff comes around close to 150. So 20 plus K uphill, 8.5 average and 7.2 average for the last 6.3K. Wow. So that's going to be a ball buster. And Rigoberto Urán, I think, would do just fine up there. I don't think he's going to be in position to win. I think you're going to see Port. I think you're going to see the top three really hanging together. There could be an outlier. I don't know. I mean, they got an HC before that. It's a good springboard for a group to get away at that point. You can see a little bit of a sprint showdown, probably nullify those two guys, Bennett, Matteo Trentin, and Sagan, those three guys. And then the big climbs. So ride of the day, though, I'm giving it to Bora Hansgrohe Richard Kamna. I think he's 24. It's a little obvious pick, but at his age and what he's tried to already do this tour, it's a big win. He was barely second to Danny Martinez on stage 13 up to Puy Marie. He did a big move the other day when Soren Kragh Andersen won. So was that stage 14? And he's been doing a lot of work in the break, like I said, with Schachmann and Danny Martinez the other day. So kudos to him. Big time win for Bora. And I think that he's got a lot going for him. You didn't really hear much about him prior to this, but he won a stage in the Dauphiné. And I think he's got a good future coming up. But hey, anyway, everybody, I appreciate you joining us today. Look, just hit subscribe. When you get a chance, maybe do a little review here for us. Say, hey, I like this show. It keeps me protected from COVID. Appreciate the thumbs up from anywhere. What is this? This is a bike racing program. This is what we do. Okay. Thanks, everybody, for joining us today. We'll see you tomorrow for the next few stages. Tour de France. Keep it up.